Hello and welcome.
Welcome to Fire Your Doctor, episode
48
with your host, Dr. Danielle Lockwood.
and Richard Lockwood. We're
That's
happy to have you
slightly
here.
fast.
Yes, today actually kicks off a series. It's a 3-part series that we're going to do, which is going to end season 2. How fun is
Wow.
that?
It's
Season
so
2.
exciting.
So after these
I
3
mean,
episodes, we're going to have a little short hiatus and then we'll be kicking off season 3 sometime in mid-July.
I was going to say it's as exciting as perimenopause can be. Let's just
Yes.
let's calibrate.
So this is our series, which we have titled Hormone Purgatory, the in-between time. And this is part 1. And the question is this menopause or am I losing my mind?
Yes.
And yes, perimenopause. Yes, we're so excited. My husband's very excited because he gets to learn so much about perimenopause.
Uh,
He's so excited. This is the face of excitement in case you haven't tuned into our YouTube in a while. By the way, are you listening on Spotify? Are you listening on Apple Podcasts? Are you enjoying things on Spotify? I said Spotify already. YouTube. Please give us a like and a subscribe. We need to promote our likes and subscribes. Give us a comment also. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Tell us what you want to hear and don't want to hear. We love hearing from you. So please give us some feedback.
there's somebody like angry, like writing from the bathroom, and they say they're just like, I want more turkey sounds.
Yes.
Probably.
Yes,
Yeah.
there is. Yes. And he's out. He probably is going to peek his head out very soon here.
Oh.
Okay. So we're going to talk about recognizing that there's something going on, that most women are not going crazy, that actually there is these major hormonal shifts. We're going to talk about that. So you don't feel like yourself. Your labs may look fine. Your cycle is weird, but not gone. And suddenly your sleep, your mood, your focus, and your body feel unfamiliar. Does that sound familiar to the women listening to this? Does that sound familiar to the husbands who have to live in the same house as their wives who are going through this? Possibly.
Have to. It's more like get to.
Get to.
Yeah.
So the real questions that women ask, these are questions that I get. Am I too young for perimenopause? Why am I waking up at 3 a.m. every night? Why do I feel anxious, angry, or emotionally unstable out of nowhere? And typically we would time that sometimes with their cycle, but it seems erratic at this point. Why is ADD, brain fog, forgetfulness suddenly getting worse? Why do I feel like I'm doing everything right and still gaining weight? That's a huge one. Why did no one tell me this starts before menopause? I think people think it's just all of a sudden you wake up and you just go into menopause and everything's great. And that's actually not the case. So these aren't fringe questions. They're the kinds of symptoms that women are describing in our practice. We hear it publicly, especially the insomnia, the brain fog, the hot flashes, and sort of that feeling of being blindsided and the rage. Yes, in their late 30s to mid 40s is typically when this starts, which is a little bit earlier than I feel like our predecessors got it. And we're going to talk about all the reasons why that might be. So I'm going to just go over some research right now. I think that's important. So perimenopause often starts in the mid 40s, but it can start earlier. And many hallmark menopause symptoms actually begin in perimenopause. Hormones don't just decline neatly. Estrogen can swing up and down unpredictably, which is why symptoms can feel chaotic. Sleep problems are a huge driver of the whole cascade. The Cleveland Clinic notes that sleep disruption can fuel fatigue, brain fog, anxiety, stress, and weight gain, and that brain fog during this season is common and often tied to fluctuating hormones, plus poor sleep and a midlife stress load, not necessarily early dementia. That's the good news. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what are the earliest signs of perimenopause that women miss or doctors dismiss? Well, I would say it's the sleep thing. We'll hear that first. And especially, we'll also hear about the weight gain thing. I did what I did in my 30s, and now it's not working in my 40s, and I can't lose weight. And I seem to have just 5 or 10 pounds every year that sneaks on. And after a few years, now it's 10 to 15 pounds that you can't get off. How young can this realistically happen? I see women with fertility issues, even in as early as like 33 and 34 years old. Now,
What's the line for geriatric on pregnancy?
32,
Yeah.
so they consider you a geriatric pregnancy at age 32.
And this is something that they generally don't really tell women when they're 22.
Correct. I think we have this idea that we
Oh, you
just
got
have
tons of
all the
time.
time in the world. I'm not saying to rush out and do things, obviously take concern about who you're going to make a child with. However, I do think that there's a good chance the generation before us had it a little bit right in the sense that they got married a little bit earlier, they had children earlier, and they didn't run into some of these fertility things that we're seeing.
We have some couple friends, acquaintances, etc., and their kids are similar age to our children,
Mhm.
and they're probably what?
One
15?
seven.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah, they're in their late
15 years, easy 15 years younger.
Mhm.
If closer to 20 years younger. Actually, they have some things that we don't really deal with in the same way, say like being financially established, things like that. But on the other side, their kids will be grown and out of the house by the time they're our age,
Yes.
which means,
And they're young. They have so much energy and
yeah,
they just have so much life in them. I love it. We talk about that. I wish we would have met when we were young.
yeah,
We probably actually would have had more kids too.
probably, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Although there's
And they'd
still
be off
time.
like, well,
There's still
you
time.
never know.
Who knows? Miracles can happen.
Yeah.
So I'll have you ask me these questions just so you can know what to ask about perimenopause, and then I will try to answer them. How about that?
Okay, okay.
So we
Yeah.
talked about that. Okay, great.
What are the earliest signs that many doctors miss?
So we talked about that. So it'll be things like brain fog, insomnia, weight gain. I think those are probably the most common ones. They'll chalk it up to PMS. That gets thrown into the premenstrual syndrome category, or they might
Mhm.
even categorize the women as depressed, or they might just call them anxious. And really, it's about this hormonal fluctuation that's happening.
Tell me about the emotional instability.
Well, I remember one of my professors, shout out to Dr. Winstar. She was one of our gyne professors. She said that estrogen is like a warm hug, and when it goes away, it really makes things very irritating in life. And so estrogen, as crazy as it is and how it can give you periods and mood swings and all this other stuff, when it's not there, your ability to handle stress actually gets more difficult and you have a hard time softening the blow to people as well. So you become very irritable.
Can you help the audience differentiate PMS from, say, like burnout, anxiety, and perimenopause?
What's interesting is I think they all fuel each other, right? So, for example, perimenopausal symptoms are worsened by things like burnout, anxiety, and especially people who've had a history of premenstrual syndrome, because typically, if they've had premenstrual syndrome, and those would be things like breast tenderness, cramping, irritability, anger, digestive issues, all sorts of things like that, even the brain fog, the tiredness, moodiness, all that. If they're having those things, they don't have a healthy period to begin with. So they're already dealing with an imbalance of hormones, and then they're going right into the perimenopausal time where that already imbalanced state becomes exacerbated by the fluctuations in the hormones even more.
Okay. So are you saying that the anxiety, the burnout, and that kind of stuff, that would all be kind of clustered together with, say, cortisol, et cetera? So are you saying that that cortisol imbalance, that stress response actually makes you go into menopause sooner?
Yes, there's actually reported case studies where people go into early ovarian failure after big stressful events. And there's also been cases where they've been able to restore their fertility and have children after they were able to basically calm their nervous system down. So, yes, you can go in and out of being able to have children at certain age groups just based on cortisol levels, which we've talked extensively about on this show, and
Mhm.
just your ability to handle those adrenaline surges.
It almost seems like biologically that would make sense because as a woman, there seems like a biological utility in fertility kind of shutting off during high times of stress and uncertainty. 'Cause
100%.
you're like signaling to your body, this might not be a great time for having a baby right now.
Yep.
So
And we
it's
can
kind
get
of
into the
interesting.
nerdiness of that, but one of the things that will be measured when we're doing hormone panels at our clinic, we're typically measuring all the way through the cascade. So we're even looking at things like prolactin, which typically you would only look at in a person who was breastfeeding to make sure that they were able to make enough breast milk. But we'll see when people are really stressed or they have an underlying metabolic condition like prediabetes, insulin resistance, or metabolic syndrome, that they will actually start producing a lot more prolactin in their brain. Also, I've noticed people who are really into fasting in order to lose weight. And we see that that stresses the body out so much in certain cases that it will actually produce more prolactin in the body, not just in females, but in males, which then inhibits not only female hormones, but it will also inhibit testosterone. So it's a huge
Interesting.
blocker for testosterone as well.
Okay. Tell me about 3 a.m.
Well, 3 a.m. is the time when the liver has done most of its detox, and typically the blood sugar can't stabilize anymore because it's used up all of its glycogen. And so we see cortisol start to rush in. And without the buffering of specifically progesterone, we will see a rise in cortisol early, which makes them feel very awake. And they will typically start thinking on a spiritual note. 3 a.m. is big time
Yeah,
prayer
it is.
time. So if you're a prayer, if you're a prayer warrior, you're
Prayer,
a
pray, pray.
prayer,
Those would be spelled the same way.
prayer,
Prayer and
a
prayer.
prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is
Then
a useless fact from me.
okay,
Like,
this is in. This just in. They're spelled the same.
yeah.
But would you agree? I
3
usually
a.m.
get
Yeah.
tapped between 3 and 4 a.m. if God's
Oh
like,
yeah.
I
Oh
got
yeah.
something to tell you.
It's definitely like I would say midnight to 3 is like, that's kind of like, it's prime time.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then what happens is if you're lucky, you can get back to sleep. Usually you'll have to be kind of groggy because you'll get interrupted.
Weird.
And yeah, it's very common. And again, it's like that buffering. There's also progesterone also buffers insulin as well. So you see a lot more insulin resistance as people age. And that's why it's more difficult for them to lose weight, even though they're doing the same thing.
Mm.
Okay. What else?
I'm trying not to derail us because you have this whole thing with like actually prescribing progesterone for men, like dealing with the cortisol, but I'm
Yes.
not gonna, we're
Yeah.
gonna just avoid
Yeah,
that.
come over there. Yes, and men need progesterone. It's interesting, difference between our female blood panel and our male blood panel ain't that much because I'm looking at the line of everything. And so just in case a man can be too high in estrogen, he can also be too low in estrogen. So why not look at estrogen in men? Because it will lead to an understanding of where they're getting the hiccup in the processing of their hormones.
Okay.
So gotta look at everything.
So, what is this? Tell me about this feeling that you would get from patients where it's like they're just not even recognizing themselves, or what are they recognizing? What are they not recognizing?
I think it has to do with just this deep exhaustion, usually that women hit in their late 30s, early 40s. Typically in their 40s is really if they have a career, it's the part of the career that is really you're really grinding away, probably the busiest part of your career. You finally feel like you have some sort of expertise or you've reached a certain level of expertise and you're finally getting paid for that expertise. You're not this young sprout anymore in their 20s, but you're also expected to raise kids. You're expected to obviously be a wife. So there's a lot of pressure. So I think it's just the years of accumulation of the stress, not sleeping all that well, not eating all that well, building up that then really creates this, this idea that things you don't feel the same and then your hormones start going wonky. It's quite a cruel joke, actually.
Oh, it sounds pretty fun. At what point is it just because a lot of
Well,
this stuff just could be like, oh well, you're burned out, like you're
it's hard
stressful.
because I think that the stress, as we're talking about, really plays a role in how prevalent this is. You know, I really believe that even though things were stressful, obviously, we're talking about like our grandparents, they grew up during the Depression, they grew up through World War II. They also had some simplicity in their life. They weren't being pulled in 56 directions. It's like they were at home or they weren't like forced to like do as many things as we're supposed to do. We also don't have like time off. We're just 100% on. We can be reached on the phone anytime. So unless we put limits around it, you could kind of work every single day if you wanted to.
That's true. I also think that I think that the modern world, we've put a lot more expectations on ourselves. It's like Now we have largely, I would say, both parents working, school. It seems like even since I was a kid up till now, as an adult with children, it seems like there's just more stuff. It's just like every birthday, we've got to bring cupcakes and we got to do this and we got to do that. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do all this stuff.
And you don't. You just don't. Too bad. Sorry.
Deal with it, kid.
Yeah.
No, but I guess like when I think about parents and grandparents, and it's just like there's just was a more of a streamlined existence.
I don't know. That could just be our fantasy. Maybe it was this way. We just didn't realize it. I don't know. Something has become more demanding. Maybe it's even just social media, seeing what other people are doing. And then you're just like, oh, darn, now I got to make the cupcakes that are like handmade with the
You ever see those?
whatever.
It's a Pinterest meme. It's kind of old now, but it's called Nailed It, where you
Yeah.
see somebody that made this beautiful creation or some kind of decorated
Yeah.
cupcake, and then you've made your version, and
It really ain't measuring up.
it's not as good.
It's not as
It's
good.
bad. And then
Yeah.
they just nailed it, as the caption.
Yes, I've had those.
Fun thing to do at 3 a.m. when you're awake from perimenopause. Look up the Pinterest like fails.
I would say that if I am not sleeping, I am not doing well. Like sleep is very important to me. I really need sleep. It's become more important even.
Hmm.
Especially like if I'm going through a stressful period, it is the way for me to just kind of like now I can shut down.
That just seems like when you were talking about that cascade of the cortisol coming on, almost it sounds like a cortisol awakening response, but it's happening at 3 or 4 in the morning.
Yeah, it's a dysregulated
Yeah,
response.
yeah.
Mhm.
Hypothetically, I mean, no, but it seems like just stealing from somebody who's already in debt. Because if you're already tired and stressed out, like the last thing that you'd prefer to have is to be up at 3 in the morning.
Well, and again, I think I want to go back to these women have not been handled correctly even from the get-go. I cannot tell you how many teen patients I have right now, teen girl patients, where their hormones are atrocious. They're making
What's the reason for that in that younger cohort?
well, I mean, I would guess nutrition, right? And
Mm,
just either that or a lack thereof nutrition.
I gather.
And we're just seeing insulin resistance at such a young age.
So diet, I mean, obviously hormonal birth control and things like that would
Yeah.
play a role.
These in this particular cases, children, well, they are children,
Pediatric, sure,
15, yeah,
yeah.
15, 16 years old. They're not on any birth control. This is
And
just
they're
what
still having that.
oh, yeah,
Because that's where I immediately am like,
right.
okay, hormonal.
Whereas in the 90s and early 2000s where we grew up, they would just automatically put these girls on birth control, which
Mm,
would somewhat regulate the hormones, but it would completely suppress a normal ability to recover. And then they're seeing problems conceiving later on because they're masking underlying, for example, PCOS, which is polycystic
yeah.
ovarian syndrome, which really is a metabolic condition. It's an insulin resistance condition. So they're masking this by faking that they're having a normal cycle, which is just a breakthrough bleed caused by
Enforcing a normal
enforcing
cycle.
it and then suppressing everything, which may alleviate symptoms, but ultimately isn't dealing with the problem. And so now you've got those same people that maybe it worked for them temporarily to be able to conceive, and in some cases it did not, right? And then all of a sudden they're either getting a hysterectomy or whatever they're needing to do to deal with that, or they go straight from the oral birth control to a Mirena IUD, which is a slow released birth control and intrauterine device.
Yeah.
So, it's just a vicious cycle. And then all of a sudden they're hitting perimenopause. Those are the people.
Mm.
And they've always had issues with their hormones that has not been addressed. And they're having a terrible time with peri and menopause in general.
So you mentioned in that kind of cycle that some of these teen and pediatric patients that are already having trouble, you mentioned insulin resistance in that process. Is
Mhm.
that primarily like weight gain type insulin resistance or even among people that would be considered
One
like trim?
one of the kids
That's what I was getting at. I was
is
like thinking
skinny.
that's
She's like
interesting.
skinny fat, I guess, because she's
Yeah.
got all of the signs and symptoms of insulin resistance and prediabetes. She's a tiny girl.
I forget.
But her main issue is acne. It's
Mm,
very bad acne. And she's already gone to the dermatologist. She's already done all these things. It's not working. And the mom is at least wise enough to go, well, I don't want to put her on a bunch of these things. It's going to really harm her gut bacteria, which it will. And it
right.
will lead to these other risk factors such
Got
as
like,
Crohn's disease and
are we
things
talking
like
like
that.
Accutane or what are you
Yeah,
talking
like an
about?
Accutane
Okay.
or like a really heavy oral antibiotic and a topical antibiotic regimen, which is what the
Mhm.
dermatologists do for acne. And really what we're dealing with is a complete imbalance of the hormone system.
Okay. But what you're saying is that diet would be a primary like function or a primary factor in developing that.
Yeah, I would have to say that that's huge. And then you also might look at like their propensity to develop that based on maybe family history, which again, families do what families do in repeated patterns, right? It's just
Sure.
how it manifests. Oh,
Yeah, I think in the book we talked about just environmental estrogens and
yes.
then
Yes.
plastics like
Thank you.
BPAs and stuff like
We haven't
that
mentioned that yet. That's
coming
huge.
into so environmental toxicities. A lot of these things are mimicking kind of estrogen like compounds, et cetera. And then so that would be a factor because going along with this as you're talking about non-obese teen pediatric patients like showing the early signs of this developmental process, I'm then like, why?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Eh,
Thank you for saying that. We've got a huge issue with pesticides, which are huge endocrine disruptors, right?
okay.
So even if they're eating healthy and they don't have, for example, glyphosate, which is Roundup
hmm
found on their foods, they're getting atrazine or they're getting some other type of pesticide that's interfering with their entire endocrine system.
Well, and there's also this way that there's a famous kind of controversial individual that had this outburst about frogs and basically frogs turning hermaphrodite. And so he made this
Yeah. And it was
online rant.
atrazine.
Yeah. What was it, atrazine? I thought that one was like about also just expelled birth control. That just basically birth controls that are metabolized in the body. So, okay, imagine a woman takes a hormonal birth control pill. She's going to metabolize that and eventually excrete like urine. And then there's still going to be some of those estrogens and whatnot in the urine that's eventually going to go out into the environment. Now let's times that by, say, millions of women in a geographic area all doing the same thing. And they're actually seeing it show up in like groundwater and in lakes and
Ponds and
rivers. Yeah.
lakes and stuff. Yeah, no, that particular study with the hermaphroditic
But that
amphibians
one was
was
atrazine.
atrazine.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
That was leading to a feminization of the
But I would make
population.
the argument that we are getting just a tiny little bit of everybody's drugs, even in
hmm
tap water. There's
Right.
no real, one of the main things I tell for people tell for people do is to consider getting some sort of filtration on their water system
Uh,
because even if they're I haven't found a test that's good at measuring the pharmaceuticals in water,
mhm.
but we know they're there from the studies.
Well, yeah, just the studies and then just the outcomes. I mean, how is it? And I know we're talking about women, but I'm going to make it about men. No, but like say males' testosterone levels just kind of cratering, and then likewise we're seeing this
Is it
rise in
because
this.
the patriarchy is coming out?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. That's why the patriarchy's testosterone's down by 80%.
Yes, and the
Oh,
patriarchy is taking out the trash.
I do take out the trash. Remember that time you took out the trash? You're like, I don't want to do this
I don't
anymore.
want to.
No.
That was the appreciation day. You had to go in the office.
Yeah.
We talked about this in our one marriage episode. Yep.
But I only bring it up because I'm just like when we're looking at both of this signal, we're seeing a signal of endocrine disruption
Mm-hmm.
across both genders at younger and younger ages.
Say endocrine, we mean hormone.
So hormone
And
disruption.
specifically, we're talking about sex hormones. But
Ugh.
we're also talking about uh, all the hormones
The
dealing
computer
with.
just likes me. Sorry, if you're just listening, infamous
It's fine. Let's just not
AI
say anything.
camera.
Yeah, our
Okay.
camera did stuff. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So let's see. Perimenopause is not a
What do we do about
disease.
it?
It's not a disease, but it's not nothing. So women obviously are being dismissed. They're being misdiagnosed. They're fragmented across specialties. Like I said, a lot of time, okay, let's say you come in and you're like, hey, my sleep is off. So who are they going to send you to? Well, they might send you for a sleep study or they might send you to, I don't know, your PCP.
Actually, can we
Give
just
you trazodone.
nice.
Yeah.
Can we just anchor just one of these things where you were talking about like diet in particular was fueling insulin resistance, and then that was what should we be eating?
Well,
What should like
we'll get there in a second.
are we getting there?
We're gonna
Okay.
get there. We're
Okay.
building up. We got 3
Okay.
parts to this.
You know
We're
what?
just
I'm
we're
just
gonna
I'm just
ease on
asking. I was like,
in.
you know what? Let's not give people a problem without a solution.
Okay.
Sure.
Typically, I'm gonna just say this up front. There is no mystery diet. I'm not holding anything back from you. It's real simple. Real food, real food. You want to read the label on what you're eating and try to not eat things out of packages as much as possible.
Okay.
Right? Make your own stuff. Get a recipe. Make the thing you want to eat. Typically, that's going to be cleaner, right? That right
Sure.
there, that's already cleaner. We've talked about how it doesn't matter. Yes, it matters to go organic, but even more importantly, real food. Rinse your food off. We use ozone water to get the rest of the pesticides off, even on organic. And you have to just eat real food. There's no way around it. I think people just want this very quick fix when it comes to nutrition.
I'm going to switch to organic sugar.
Does not
And
matter.
then
It's
we're
still
going to solve it.
sugar.
We're going to solve it.
Okay, so you have a little bit less pesticides, but it's still sugar. Nobody is sugar deficient. I'm sorry.
I might be.
I like it. It's good. I'm not trying to say it's not like, oh, I never have it, but nobody's sugar deficient. Everything turns into sugar. You eat protein, it turns into sugar eventually. You eat carbohydrates, definitely turns into sugar. Fruits and vegetables turns into sugar. Sugar is the basic molecule that runs the cells. You're not sugar deficient. You don't need to eat sugar on top of it. Sorry.
Okay.
Just
I
saying.
thought we were waiting and then
Okay, but
All right.
but yeah, we'll get into it more. I'm just a
Cool.
little bit feisty about that. Okay.
But I knew I'm just asking because it seemed relevant.
Women, we talked about they're being dismissed, they're being misdiagnosed, and then they're being shuffled off to different specialties and treated like parts. I want to say one of the top drugs given to women right now is an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety drug.
Okay.
So this perimenopausal stage is being treated like a mental illness. And there is
Interesting.
mental illness as a symptom to it, but that's not the problem.
Okay, so when you say that it's not really being diagnosed, is that getting back into something that we've talked about on other episodes? And that would be the sensitivity of the lab tests that PCPs are generally using?
Yes, maybe, or they're just complaining enough to actually get, like, I want help. Can you send me somewhere? Or their PCP's like, oh my gosh, let's just put you on an antidepressant or an anxiety medication.
Okay.
See if that feels better. Or birth control.
Okay.
Like they're putting 40-year-olds on birth control. They're like, oh, you're having like missed periods and you're having this. Oh, you just need to regulate your hormones. Here's birth control, right? Which, by the way, birth control is not bioidentical hormones. We're going to talk about that in another episode. What is a bioidentical hormone? Meaning it needs to mimic exactly what your hormones are doing. The fake stuff blocks your hormones from working. So it might actually be making your perimenopausal symptoms worse in some cases. Okay, so we already talked about that. Perimenopause it's a transition phase, but it can be somewhere between 5 and 10 years. I mean, that's a pretty long transition. Hormones are fluctuating. They're not just declining. So they're not just declining. You might get spikes, you might get drops. Menopause, the technical definition of menopause is when you've had no period for 12 months. But Dr. Dani Lockwood, I had a period at 11 months and then I didn't have another one for 6 months. Am I still perimenopause? Yes, you are technically. You have to have a period, no period for 12 months consecutively. Okay. But what if you had a period at 13 months? Guess what? It starts over. You got to wait a whole 12 months of no period before you technically are considered menopause. Okay. So perimenopause is everything before that particular thing.
So you've talked about early perimenopause, even including potentially pediatric patients starting to show that perimenopausal symptoms. What would you say would be the healthy median to be actually perimenopause and menopause?
When somebody's healthy?
Yeah, like if we're saying that this is when you should not be experiencing perimenopause or menopause, when should you be?
According to Chinese medicine, you're supposed to be fertile up until the age of 49.
Okay.
And that's been around 5,000 years. So I feel like that's a good marker.
So then peri would start somewhere around 45?
Yeah, around 45. Should.
Okay.
But people are stressed.
Okay. And so then we're seeing it show up in 30s and even younger.
I have someone right now who's 37 and I have to put her on some bioidenticals because her hormones are completely tanked out. I mean, she's really feeling it.
Sure.
So whether she wants to admit it or not, like she is in perimenopause.
Okay.
Right.
So this should be happening at around mid 40s.
Yeah, like
to
45.
50.
So a healthy thing would be like,
maybe. I've heard of that.
I mean, there's a lot of women who will not be in menopause until about 53, between 53 and 55.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I was imagining. It was just like thinking 50 to 55.
Yeah. And the research defines perimenopause as in an unpredictable estrogen swing. However, in our book, we talked extensively about the concept of estrogen dominance, meaning When that is really high, we will see low progesterone. And we want estrogen and progesterone to be in balance. So there would be a very rare occasion where I would just give estrogen by itself. I typically give estrogen and progesterone so they balance each other because that is how we were made,
Okay.
right? Now, I might give progesterone as a standalone because most of the time in perimenopause, we see that estrogen dominance with those massive swings. We see a complete dilution of the progesterone because people are stressed.
And
So,
then, yeah, so that's usually excuse me, that's usually the context that I would see you prescribe. Progesterone would be trying to manage cortisol. And then when cortisol is in control, estrogen and testosterone can then balance out on their own.
and for the most part, if I can get
Mm.
people down to a healthy weight, get their insulin sensitivity working again, get them to process some of the stress they've like somaticized in their body,
Mm.
then a little bit of progesterone, they feel great.
Yeah, I know. Hypothetically, until you get lazy and forget to take it.
Yeah, exactly. Perimenopause involves, and this is from a 2015 study, they're talking about an unpredictable estrogen swing, not a steady state decline. Symptoms will include things like irregular cycles, sleep problems, mood changes, brain fogs, and hot flashes. And that's according to the Mayo Clinic. This isn't a deficiency problem yet. It's actually a volatility problem. So, really, it's about managing and keeping things even. But as we know, there's a hormonal hierarchy. What could be exacerbating that is underlying things that were going on even before you hit 39 and a half. Right?
Mm,
You could have had an out of control thyroid you didn't know about. You could have a
mhm.
metabolic syndrome you didn't know about. You could have an anemia that you don't know about or a major nutritional deficiency that you don't know about.
Everybody's anemic.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's really true. And they're either it's not just iron anemia, B vitamin anemia typically,
Okay, sure,
because
sure.
they're burning the candle at both ends. They're working like crazy. They're trying to raise
Mhm.
their kids. And this is also the time of life between, 45 and 50 where your parents start to decline too. Like, and then they've got health problems and you're having to take care of
Right,
them. So
right.
it's a really stressful time of life.
But at least your parents, everybody's parents, are emotionally mature and they've like
Yes.
really prepared
Hmm.
and they've left a legacy and you
Hmm.
know what, the
They've
family's
got
ready
everything
for
in the
this.
trust and like
Yep.
they've
Yep.
assigned the
And
things.
emotionally healthy as well.
They've got rid of all their junk at their house. It's all
Hmm.
organized
Yep.
so you can find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, not a big deal, right?
Not a big deal.
So, why do women feel dismissed? Well, the labs look normal. I say that in quotes, just like we've said with so many things. People have been told their labs look normal. There's no clear diagnosis, and the symptoms are they're spread across specialties. So,
To
yep.
Let's clarify for people that haven't watched like 10 episodes ago. What Dr. Dani is saying, as she kind of air quotes, normal is that patients will often feel bad before a lab result would trigger a medical intervention from a primary care physician. And that's because they would view it's not a problem until you need a prescription to fix it. At
Hmm.
which point you might be 50%, even up to 70% or more deficient or off, let's say, in whatever hormone that level it is. So a patient might start to feel suboptimal at 10 or 20% deficiency of a certain hormone, but the doctor wouldn't prescribe until you're at a 70% deficiency. Okay.
Exactly.
I just helping our people that are just tuning in.
All right. So let's say a woman comes in and she's complaining of anxiety to her primary care. Typically, they're going to be either dealt with by the primary care, who's not the best person to deal with this particular thing, but nevertheless, they would prescribe them some sort of SSRI or an SNRI or some sort of drug, antidepressant or anti anxiety, or they'd refer them to psychiatry to handle that. What about a woman who comes in for irregular cycles? Well, they might be referred then to the OBGYN, which is the obstetrician gynecologist. And they would typically either put them on Mirena IUD, which is a hormone based progestin is the fake progesterone that's put in there. We'll talk about that later. And voila, no more weird bleeding. They bleed lighter and the progestin has blocked things out. Everything's good. So that's typically how the OBGYN is going to deal with it.
How long do those kind of these temporary fixes, because that seems to be what you're implying, that this gives you some relief. How long does that patch usually get people?
Well, it does give you relief from heavy periods
Okay.
typically. Okay, so I will say that that actually works, but
What's
prog-
the catch?
progestin suppresses progesterone, which is your healthy form of progesterone. And so you start losing over time, which takes about a year or two, your natural progesterone. So typically, if somebody has a Mirena IUD, I would also recommend supplementation with natural progesterone.
And then once you lose your natural progesterone, it becomes much harder to regulate our
The
friend
estrogen.
cortisol. Well, I was
Well,
going to
and
say
yes,
cortisol and estrogen.
exactly. And
Okay.
insulin.
And
And
insulin.
insulin.
So over time, your insulin is going to be what helps you manage blood sugar and weight gain, staying away from diabetes. Cortisol is your main stress hormone. And then estrogen, of course, is tied to these perimenopausal symptoms. So what you're saying is within 1 to say 3 years, you would have made insulin resistance worse, stress hormone response worse. Let's see. And then by extension, your estrogen and your perimenopausal symptoms could be even worse too.
Yes, absolutely.
Lovely.
What about they come in for fatigue? Well, who's handling fatigue? Maybe the primary care. What would they give for that? Well, maybe sleep. They'll tell you just sleep more, but I can't sleep. I'm having trouble with sleep. Okay, well, I'll give you some trazodone. So trazodone is the number one prescribed sleep medication. It works to get people to sleep, but it does not give you deep sleep. So it does not allow you to go into that deeper detox level of, for example, the REM sleep. So it's not very restorative sleep. Your eyes are closed and you're not awake. I guess that's better than nothing, but it's not actually giving you what you need to repair.
You should probably also talk about, say, alcohol use and stuff like that for sleep.
Totally. Totally. And a lot of women come in, they're like, I just feel better if I have a glass of wine before I sleep, and then I sleep great. Again, you're spiking your blood sugar. You're not actually getting into the deeper sleep cycle. Your eyes are closed, but you're not sleeping and restoring the way that you need to.
Mm.
Not to mention, it's making your insulin resistance worse, and it will eventually make your cortisol symptoms worse. So that's one of the worst things that you could do to go to sleep is alcohol.
Right. And then, of course, habit forming and all
Yes.
stuff like
And
that.
extra calories, and
Yeah,
you're drinking and you're laying there. It's just going to turn straight to sugar. It's not good.
yeah, yeah.
I have this really great little cocktail that we drink at night. It's
Oh, I was
magnesium,
like, what are you talking?
clean magnesium, and inositol. It's one of my favorite blends. Yeah,
Put
it's
it in a shaker.
you put in a little.
No, I mean, we mix it, but
We mix it up. It's good. Okay,
oh, now we're stirred, not shaken.
exactly.
James Bond wouldn't be proud, but
So the system is a fragmented system. Is
sure.
anybody surprised?
You're talking about the medical system
Yeah,
to treat
read our
this.
book. It's all about that. You're in the wrong system. They're not really going to help you. They're going to give you whack-a-mole medicine, is what we call it.
Yeah. How do I get this person out of my office? I
You
gotta
got
go play golf.
6.5 minutes to get them out because you need to see 100 people a day.
Yeah.
Again, I wouldn't, God bless them. Like they're working in a system, they're doing the best that they can do,
I had a thought.
but they only have I don't know, 4.25 minutes. I don't know how long they honestly,
We should take
said.
a pool and like bet.
Yeah,
No.
tell us, make a comment, please, if you hear this, and tell me how many minutes your PCP is spending with you.
No, but what I was going to go with when you were kind of talking about a doctor having to see 100 patients a day, maybe part of the reason that physicians are so dismissive of a lot of these symptoms is because physicians have them. Like as somebody that's, I'm not a doctor myself,
Yeah.
but I've been in healthcare. I've worked night shift. I've done all those kind of things. And like, who ain't stressed out? Who ain't tired? Who ain't?
Can I tell you a quick little story?
So maybe that's why they're dismissing it is because
I have a patient. She used to be a patient a while ago.
sure,
She was a physician.
resolve the case.
Yeah. She was resolved the case, and the fact that I told her the things to do. She said that's too hard. She went to her OB and she got put on birth control. And she said, I feel better. And it's just easier.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, that's what it is.
So that was a doctor that was a patient.
Yeah, totally. Doctors
Well,
are some of the worst patients.
But probably part of the reason though is like, what are you going to do? I mean, 12-hour shifts, like, et cetera. I mean, there's a lot going on there. And so I'm thinking like, I don't know if a doctor would be the most sympathetic to somebody saying that they're stressed out because of soccer practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
For better or worse. I mean,
well, and our body is part of a system. So each hormone actually influences another hormone, which influences a different hormone, right? So the emotional experience is usually not validated very much by these physicians. Number one, they don't have time. Number two, they have already subspecialty to counseling or psychiatry or medication.
Oh, gross feelings. Get those over
Yeah.
there.
Ooh, no, feelings separate.
Compartmentalize those
Put them over there.
this
Exactly.
way.
Yeah. So people will come in and say, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Well, maybe you are. Maybe you're depressed. Maybe you're anxious,
Yeah.
right? I don't recognize myself. Well, you're waking up at 3 a.m. Every day. You're gaining weight. You don't feel
Yeah.
good anymore. I'm more reactive than I've ever been. Allergies come up. Weird rashes come up.
Mm.
Like mast cell activation comes up more.
Yeah.
Why? Because estrogen is a mast cell activation stabilizer.
And so then physician just kind of writes up, okay, well, whatever, like we got allergies, we got sleep study, we got this, we got that. So even if the doctor is kind of doing their job and following that
Mhm.
protocol, now you're kind of broken up into like 5 specialty type buckets that are
Mhm.
going to treat each of those things.
Yeah, plus I'm seeing just to get people into their OB, it's like 4 months. So it's like you call today, you're like, "I'm having all these symptoms." It's like 4 months until they can get an appointment with you.
Right.
It's just
Right.
crazy. It's so crazy. I can't handle stress the way I used to. Well, that's true. I always describe your energy as a bank account, and you only have so much you can spend out of that bank account before it has to be filled back up. And if you're just constantly, well, I can't push myself like I used to, you're right. You can't. You cannot. You have to take a break. You have to take
Yeah.
a
I'm not
rest.
20 anymore.
Yeah. And we're called to Sabbath. Like that is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to
Mm.
rest, and we could be
And
better
here
at
we
it.
are recording.
And here we are. I took yesterday off. I did not work at all. I typically Sabbath Friday night to Saturday night,
I'm just teasing you.
but yes, here we are. Okay. But we slept in today till 7 a.m. ish. We went to sleep.
Yeah. I was the
Estrogen.
one up at 3.
So estrogen, do you see this? Estrogen affects serotonin. So it's the same processing. There's a gene SNP called COMT, catecholamine. They process estrogen and serotonin are processed through that same gene SNP, which requires magnesium and B6, by the way, just so you know. And then dopamine is through that same one. So your motivation, not to mention testosterone, right? Women need some
Mhm.
testosterone because they want to be able to put muscle on their body and they want to be motivated and they want to have a semblance of a sex drive. But I'll tell you, estrogen and progesterone need to be in balance in order to experience that for women. Hormone fluctuations then cause emotional instability. So you're seeing the hormones fluctuate because it's the same processor that processes estrogen, also processes serotonin and dopamine. And then as a reminder, 90% of your serotonin is produced in your guts.
So how would you, as a patient, experiencing these things on, I'm not sure if it was the last episode or the one before, but we were talking about, say, spiritual health, and then there's a lot of like mental health kind of things with this too. How do you disambiguate how much of this is hormonal, how much is spiritual, that it's like, hey, I'm stressed and I just need to give this to God. And then what is, I need to put yam cream on every night.
You might need to do both, you know? I think that it could be both. I would say, let's just say the patient went online and was like, this is stress. I'm going to have hard conversations with my husband. I'm going to work out my marriage. I'm going
We didn't
to,
even do anything
I
on
didn't
that
even
one.
do anything.
You know what's funny that if you're experiencing a lot of these perimenopausal symptoms, you probably already are having hard conversations. They just might not be
They're
productive.
not productive, but let's just say that they went and they were like, I think this is stress.
Okay.
And they went through their life and they de-stressed.
Okay. We Marie Kondoed all the
All the
stuff you don't like
things,
anymore.
and I feel good. I have
Okay.
conversations. I'm good with God. I'm all of these things, and they still have these symptoms. It's hormonal.
Okay.
Okay. But that doesn't mean you couldn't be hormonal. And I would probably still encourage you to do those things.
Right. So more of a yes and.
Yes. And
Okay.
so the
Fair.
sleep piece. Okay. So this is waking up between 3 and 4 a.m. You get that light, broken sleep,
Mhm.
feeling wired but exhausted. The research says, why don't you read that? Progesterone supports.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry. It's in a different section. Progesterone supports calming neurotransmitters like GABA. As progesterone drops, sleep worsens and anxiety increases.
Yes. So for the nerds out there, progesterone is a GABA, which is so there's excitatory neurotransmitters, glutamic acid, and then there's an inhibitory neurotransmitter, which has a calming effect, and it's called GABA. And progesterone is a GABA agonist, meaning it helps the body make more GABA, right? To inhibit that excitatory drive.
Isn't there
Okay.
also like a neurological repair effect on like GABAs?
This is just yes.
I'm
it's
just thinking like gabapentin and stuff. It's kind of like
it has
one of
a
those. Yeah.
component, yes, because it can cross the blood-brain barrier. So, and progesterone is the same. Progesterone is incredibly healing for the brain.
Would you say, I'm almost kind of thinking about this because I don't have any stats in front of me because I didn't prepare. No, but I don't have any stats in front of me. But there's a lot of studies that are generally saying that anxiety among adult women has been like increasing and that there's this basically mental health crisis kind of going on. Would you consider all of these types of things, maybe even just, would you argue that they should be standard of care before things like SSRIs, et cetera, are considered?
Percent.
Because it sounds like, well, wait a minute, why would we be going to antidepressants when hormone and estrogen balance and kind of early perimenopause and all these things are kind of happening and we're not even addressing them?
4.5-minute appointments.
Well, right. At which point it's just like,
And drug
okay.
kickbacks. You make more money as a conventional doctor when you recommend a pharmaceutical as part of your
Mm.
regimen.
Yeah, I'm realizing earlier I made kind of an offhand comment about yams. It's like
Yeah.
you have a natural product that will source in the office, or
Yeah,
supply in the office.
progesterone, a bioidentical form of progesterone is from yams, actually.
Right. And so there's a topical lotion.
Oral combo.
Or yeah, but I mean, you just basically put a lotion on your skin every night and it's like done. And it has yams in it and then you sleep
Many
better.
yams were killed in the making of the progesterone.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Their memory will be eternal.
Yes. Yeah. We'll talk about that more because we are going to talk about bioidentical hormones. And there is a lack of doctors who, and even myself, I was not trained effectively in bioidentical. I've had to learn, I've had to take extra courses,
Mm.
I've had to consult with other people who that's their specialty. And I've just had to learn, just because it's so important. But we'll talk about it more. Let's see. Brain fog and cognitive changes is another complaint. Women will say things like, I can't find my words, or I forget simple things, or my work performance is slipping. So they might note those things. The research says that perimenopause can affect memory, concentration, and mental clarity. So
Mm.
very clear in the research that those things can be caused by that. And that's from some offhand clinic, Johns Hopkins University.
You ever wonder why it's John's, but it's not? I don't know. It just always bothered me.
Johns. So again,
But
this is not
possessive.
early dementia. It's a brain adapting to hormonal changes. There's
Yeah.
also studies showing that when women are pregnant, their brain actually shrinks because the baby is robbing them
No
of so many
comment.
things. Yes. Again, not early dementia but there is a pregnancy brain thing for sure. No comment. Just smile.
I love you.
All right. Go ahead and read number 7, which is a complaint from women.
Weight gain in the belly, same habits, but different results, and increased craving.
Yeah. So what does the research say? Well, the research says that midlife equals increased insulin resistance and
Interesting.
hormone shifts affect metabolism, as we talked about before. Progesterone is a huge insulin blood sugar stabilizer. If you don't have enough progesterone, you're not going to be able to stabilize your blood sugar.
Yeah. You know what's funny is I'm actually thinking about a lot of this stuff. And even though it's like I will never have a firsthand experience with perimenopause, there's some of these things that are kind of jogging my memory and reminding me about some like kind of habits as I'm in my 40s now and just like, oh, wait, I can't get away with that anymore. And even though I'm in good shape, it's like insulin resistance is something that I need to think about.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. All right. So, why this phase exposes everything. So, this is a powerful point. Perimenopause doesn't create problems, it reveals them. Okay. So, again, it's just like when we had that lovely disease, that pandemic disease. Remember that one that we had a couple of years ago?
people still remember that?
Yeah, something 19. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I talked about that particular thing. I said that particular pandemic was the great revealer.
Actually, I was going to ask you about that
Mhm.
because we did see a disturbing signal after certain injectable treatments were
Mhm.
given in the latter half, let's say, of that event. And we did actually see just a disturbing signal clinically of irregular periods, missed periods,
Yes,
and
heavy periods where they
heavy
never had them
periods.
before.
Right. And these types of symptoms that came post safe and effective.
Yes, yeah, that's
So if
actually
we
true.
have time, that might be interesting, or like, I don't know
Well,
if we
I
have
think
to.
it's a totally different topic, but I will say okay, so the injectable portion of it and the natural, whatever we're going to call it, natural,
Natural.
the natural thing that occurred, the thing
Right.
that came that
Right.
wasn't natural, but That thing,
The communicable disease
yes, the communicable
thing.
thing that came through revealed things. So, for example, if you had allergy issues at, say, a level 2 out of 10, it was typically a 6 out of 10 after this thing happened.
Interesting.
If you had Lyme sitting in the background, just being dormant because your immune system was working fine, then you got the injectable, we saw it go up to
Hmm.
10 out of 10. It's a big issue. It really did a number on people's adaptable immunity. So the adaptive immunity is something that's formed when we learn, right? And it's the thing that's exploited with the little pokey pokes. Our innate immunity is the thing that we're born with, right? So I'm having to actually learn right before this. I was taking a course on microimmunology and learning how to microdose pieces of the immune system to reset and help them to recover parts of their immune system, specifically for a case I have right now,
Are you talking about, say, like
rheumatoid
T
arthritis.
lymphocytes versus
Oh,
blah
no, like
versus white blood?
actually giving homeopathic dosages of cytokines to signal the
Interesting.
body to do what it's supposed to do, to like wake it up.
Yeah. I thought you were kind of going towards background inflammation as you were talking about.
100%. But sometimes, for example, in a case like rheumatoid arthritis, that's a highly inflammatory issue. We need
Yeah.
to actually deregulate the inflammation response. Whereas a thing like cancer, we have a system that's not responding and like a dormant immune system that's not attacking. So we
Mm.
need to figure out a way to increase NK cell
Okay.
activation, those types of things. Just nerdy stuff. But my point is on
Like you
this.
do on a fun Saturday.
But my point is on this, that perimenopause, as I have said this entire time, it almost starts to bring forward these things that may have already been going on with this woman.
Right.
So she's got a lifetime of PMS issues, and then all of a sudden she hits 35 and a half, and now
Hmm.
she's going into early perimenopause
And
symptoms.
it's showing up 10 years early.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's interesting is you said that this kind of perimenopausal and even this time of life
Okay.
will be this time of life is kind of a revealing time
Mm-hmm.
of like what's been going on in the background, where we've been or have we been burning the candle at both ends? Where have we been cutting corners with maybe our physical or our spiritual health or our relationships? And what's interesting is the word revealing. When we look at the last book in the Bible, it's in King James, it's called the Apocalypse. And a lot of people think like that's the end of the world. But actually what it is apocalypse means to reveal. So it's like everything that's been hidden and everything that's been in the background is going to come out to the forward for both on the good side and the bad side.
Yeah. So this could be things like a stress problem. Maybe it's a stress within your relationship where you
Mm,
haven't said things that you needed to say, or you haven't heard or listened to the things that the other person needs to say or hear, right?
right.
A hidden blood sugar instability. People are pre-diabetic a lot longer than they think.
Meaning it's a tiny problem and then it's sort of a problem years, maybe even a decade before it's a real problem.
Yes, exactly. And you can already see that tendency a lot earlier than people are being diagnosed.
Hmm,
Nutrient deficiencies, as we talked about before, it's like, I don't know a case. It's very rare because we run pretty extensive reports on our patients
sure.
where we won't see some sort of B vitamin deficiency or some sort of nutrient deficiency in the background, even if they're eating clean, because we have a our soil has been so depleted, right?
Yeah, soil, the water, the environmental toxins,
And then, of course,
plastic.
we see a nervous system dysregulation, right? Which is the trauma from childhood coming forward. Like there's just all sorts of things. So undealt with stuff coming forward. How fun. So there's things, this is the phase where everything was manageable, but now it becomes undeniable. It's unmanageable.
Sure.
Okay. So it's not just anxiety. It's not just aging. It's not in your head. It's not something you should push through. This episode isn't here to fix you. It's here to help you understand what's happening so you can stop questioning yourself. You want to read this?
Psalm 139. I will give thanks and praise to you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
This is a good reminder that we are fearfully and wonderfully made and that your body's not betraying you. It's adapting and it's signaling and it's also just asking for support.
Right.
Instead of, you're broken, your neurotransmitters are broken, here's this pill.
Right.
It's a different
Yeah. Like, I guess you could also ask the question, to what extent is my body broken and to what extent is my way of life broken?
Yeah. What served you in your 20s is not gonna serve
Yeah.
you in your
Yeah.
40s.
12 hours under fluorescent might at a desk job may not really work with that kind of diet and everything and
Mm,
activity level.
100%.
Fair.
Okay.
I'm
Uh,
fearfully wonderfully made. My environment is just fearfully made.
it's true.
There's no wonderful.
So true.
No, I'm
Which
kidding.
well,
I have a
also we
lovely
talked about
environment.
today, what kingdom are you in? What
That's a good
kingdom are you
point.
in?
That's a really good
Kingdom of the
question.
world or the kingdom of God of God?
Yeah, and I think that there's this way of looking at yourself not as a person, but as an entire community. And it's like it's this weird kind of thing. It's like when you think about it, hey, would I treat my child this way? No, but I'm treating myself this way. Would I treat my wife this way? No, but I'm treating myself this way. And when you start treating yourself like a community, sometimes you can realize like, hey, wait a minute, I've been robbing my physical health for maybe recreation and fun in
Mm,
your 20s if you're staying up late and doing all these things. Maybe I've been robbing my spiritual health in return for monetary gain by,
mhm.
just a career and prioritizing that over my relationships and over things that are more important. And so I think that's as you were talking about the revealing, it's like all of a sudden the cracks are showing.
Yeah, and it's an opportunity. I think it's a huge opportunity. I have seen incredible transformation in women when we really identify what's going on and give them a plan that's workable to meet the goals that they have.
Is the food and stuff, are we going to do that in the next episode?
So
Okay, yeah, we're kind of getting there.
So we're gonna episode 49, the next one is gonna be part 2 of the hormone purgatory, what's actually
Hmm.
happening in your body. Because once you understand the mechanics, everything starts to make more sense. So that's your
Okay.
episode teaser. We'll see you next time on Fire Your Doctor.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.